Mostly, I have been speaking lately about how my own path to healing following my sister's death on September 11th last year has led me to work for justice with peace. I opposed the bombing of Afghanistan, and I oppose the proposed war in Iraq, especially if the U.S. proceeds to launch that attack as a preemptive and unilateral action. But my speaking out for peace has also forced me to explore other issues. And more, I found myself asking how I, as one victim of terrorism, might begin to envision a process of reconciliation with people who espouse terrorism and carry out terrorist acts. And honestly, I stand before you as someone whose thinking is all very new, very much in process. I was really honored to be here last night and listen to Bud and realize someone who's been on a journey of reconciliation for a longer period of time and who has a greater understanding of the path behind him and the path in front of him. And I think, in a way, it was a gift to me that this forum is happening over 3 days and that I've gotten to be a part of it, because I'm expecting that my conversations with you and some of your comments to me are going to be the next important pieces of the journey I'm on. So I want to get through my talk because I'm really looking forward to sharing my hopes and fears and hearing about yours. What I plan to do for the next 30 minutes or so is tell you about my sister and tell you about my experiences over the last year. I have a brief video about Peaceful Tomorrows, which has been certainly the most important piece of healing I've been able to do for myself, working with Peaceful Tomorrows. And then I just want to briefly talk about some things that are in the back of my head, and some things I'm trying to envision for the future, and see if I can learn from your experiences and your insights. And if together we can begin to think about how to build a world in which terrorism is less likely. Because I'm very concerned that my daughters, neither of them lose a sister, or that any of the people in this room lose a child, or a husband, or a sibling. Laura was my baby sister. She was 10 years younger than I. In between my birth and hers, my mother lost several babies that she was carrying in late stages of pregnancy, and had one child die when he was only 10 days old. So I waited a really long time for her. She was welcomed into a family. My mom and my dad lived together in a house in Westchester with my grandmother. Both of my parents were in the theater. My dad directed plays and on stage and on television. And my mother ran a traveling playhouse with adult actors doing shows for children. So our whole family was concerned with the arts and with performance and with music. And while I like to think that I really departed from my parents' ways by becoming something really establishment, like a documentary filmmaker, my sister followed very closely in my parents' steps. And even as a high school student, she was performing in my mother's children's theater. She went to professional children's school in New York for a while so that her schedule could accommodate her acting and performing. And then when it was time College she applied to and was accepted at Syracuse University as one of 24 students in their musical theater department. In her junior year, she played Gypsy Rose Lee in the performance of Gypsy that was done at Syracuse Stage. And in her senior year, she had the lead in the senior musical, which was Carnival. She played Lily. When I'm really missing Laura, I put on the Broadway albums of those shows, and I sing at the top of my voice. I'm a very bad singer. I sing at the top of my lungs along with the songs that she sang in those shows, and that makes me feel like she's still here with me, a little. After college, Laura moved to Manhattan with two of her classmates, and they rented a big apartment on the Upper West Side, rent-controlled apartment. And for several years, all three of those kids, tried to make a go in the theater. And then one of her roommates moved out to the West Coast, where he thought he might have better chances. And her other roommate got married and left to go live with her husband. And the people who ran the apartment building looked at my sister and said, well, now you have a two-bedroom rent-controlled apartment. And she said, I can't even afford that. And so they gave her a smaller, somehow they found a little tiny small rent-controlled apartment. And she stayed on living in the building. She never married. She had hundreds of friends. And she continued to try to make a living as an actress and a singer. She did perform in several off-Broadway shows, and she managed some small theater companies. But she couldn't always make a living in the theater as she dreamed, and so she did other things to pay the rent and pay the bills. And so on September 11th, she went to the 106th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center for a 2-day job to help manage a conference on information technology and risk assessment. It was her job to meet the people who were coming to the conference and to get the speakers on and off the stage at the right time. And I guess that put a few of her theater skills to use, but mostly it was a way to make money. And so there she was when that first airplane hit the tower. I had spoken to her 2 nights earlier, and I knew that she had some work. I had no idea where it was taking her. So it took the better part of the day to even learn that she might have been in the towers, and to indeed confirm that she was in the towers. At about 4:30, I got a call from a girlfriend of hers who had a key to her apartment and who'd gotten in to make sure that Laura's dog was okay, and had started listening to all the messages on Laura's machine, and immediately called me and told me that she was almost positive that Laura was in the World Trade Center. I called the company in London that was running the conference, and then I had to call my parents and tell them that my baby sister was dead. And for about the next week, as I stumbled through all the unimaginable activities of filing a missing persons report and collecting my sister's dental records and giving a DNA sample, and then applying for a death certificate, even though there was no body, I was haunted by the notion that it just wasn't right that that job was a 2-day job and that it started on September 11th. Until one morning I woke up and I said, if I was going to think about Laura's death that way anymore, I was going to go crazy. And what I needed to do was really come to terms with the notion that every innocent victim of violence and war is by definition in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think that was one of my first breakthroughs in accepting her death, was to understand that there were other people, and I'm not just talking about other people in the World Trade Center. There are other people throughout history who have suffered this kind of grief, and unfortunately all too many other people since the World Trade Center attack, the 9/11 attack, who similarly must be haunted by that question and have to work through it.